You don't have to be old to start worrying about your health and longevity. In fact, if you wait until your 60s, you're already behind. I'm 30 years old and I've spent the last decade building and testing my own longevity protocols to achieve top 1% of health, and the results have been game-changing. So in this video, I'm breaking down the exact longevity routine you should follow in your 20s and 30s and early 40s, because there are some age-specific things you need to focus on. Timestamps for everything are below. The way you want to think about it is that if you want to be in good shape in your 70s, you need to be in excellent shape in your 40s and 30s. That's because there's an age-related decline in your health and fitness. Lift weights at least twice a week, focusing on the major compound lifts like squat, bench, deadlift, pull-ups, and shoulder press to build up your muscle mass and muscle strength. Muscle mass peaks in men in their 30s and in women in their 40s, so it's still very easy to build muscle and strength in your 30s and 40s. Bone density, however, peaks at the age of 30, and it declines dramatically after menopause in women, which happens in their 50s. So you need to build the bone density with weight-bearing resistance exercise, because cardio and walking isn't going to increase bone density. However, you should prioritize cardiovascular exercise as well. That's because cardiorespiratory fitness, as measured by a VO2 max, already peaks when you're 20 years old, and it starts declining after that. You can get away with not lifting weights in your 30s because you have relatively higher amounts of muscle mass, muscle strength, and bone density at that age. And lifting weights becomes more important after your 50s. But your VO2 max declines already in your 20s. And having low VO2 max in your early life is going to be a big predictor of mortality later in life. To increase your VO2 max, you need to do aerobic training or high-intensity interval training. It's recommended to do a combination of both because they train different systems. Do at least 60 minutes of zone 2 cardio per week, and one high-intensity interval workout per week, but optimally 2 of each. However, you shouldn't do just low-intensity cardio. That's because with age, you see a decline in fast-twitch muscle fibers that can be trained only with lifting weights and near maximum intensities, such as sprinting. Having more fast-twitch muscle fibers and restoring them with exercise can counter the age-related loss of muscle mass and metabolism. This means that if you do sprinting, you're able to maintain more fast-twitch muscle fibers that then enable you to maintain more muscle mass later in life. It's been seen that elderly people who do just endurance training have much fewer fast-twitch muscle fibers, whereas those who do strength training have significantly more. Lifting weights and strength about 3 times per week already increases your fast-twitch muscle fibers, but you should also do maximum sprinting workouts, at least once a week. I want to take a quick break to let you know about my favorite wellness devices, which are the Bond Charge red light therapy devices. You've probably seen many of your favorite longevity influencers using these red light therapy devices, but do they actually work? Yes, they do. Red light therapy has been shown to have many benefits on skin anti-aging, hormone optimization, pain management, and even exercise performance. I use my device every day for 15 minutes, especially during the winter months when there's not much sunlight. It increases my energy in the morning and makes my skin glow. Just check out the testimonials on the Bond Charge website for the before and after pictures of other people. Most red light therapy devices don't have the right wavelengths of light, which might mean you're not getting the claimed benefits. Bond Charge uses the exact wavelengths of light used in research, and they also have near-infrared light that's beneficial to the joints. Head over to bondcharge.com and use the code SIIM, S-I-I-M, for a 15% discount. When we're talking about diet, then it's mostly relevant for reducing the risk of heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, and Alzheimer's. For that end, you can't go wrong with a predominantly whole foods diet, leaning more towards the Mediterranean diet, with lots of fruits and vegetables, fish, tubers, whole grains, and lean meats. How much food you should eat and what kind of macros you follow depends on your body weight. For protein, you don't need more than 1.6 grams per kilogram per day to maximize muscle growth, as shown by several meta-analyses. You can even eat less than that, like 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram, and still build muscle at this age. Just aim for 1.2 grams per kilogram at minimum and 1.6 grams per kilogram at maximum. For fat intake, you shouldn't be on a low-fat diet, but there's no benefits on going on a high-fat diet either. For men, it's seen that testosterone production peaks at 40% of total calories compared to 20%. On a 2500 calorie diet, that would be 111 grams of fat compared to 55 grams. Carbohydrate restriction increases what's called sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG, that binds to testosterone, thus lowering free testosterone, the more bioactive form of testosterone. Especially a high-protein, low-carb diet has been seen to increase SHBG the most, but a lower-protein, high-carb diet does not. Now, you obviously need protein, but by increasing your carbohydrate intake to around 35 to 45% of your total calories, you can avoid the increase in SHBG. Low-carb ketogenic diets have also been seen to be a net negative for younger, otherwise healthy individuals who aren't going to benefit from carbohydrate restriction. They'll have lower thyroid, lower testosterone, and higher lipids, which will accelerate the risk of heart disease later in life. So the optimal macronutrient recommendations for someone in their 20s and 30s would be this: 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of protein, which is 0.54 to 0.73 grams per pound per day. You can go up to 0.8 grams per pound if you wish, but more isn't needed. In total, it's about 20 to 25% of your total calories as protein. Around 30 to 40% of your calories as fat, which for most people is 70 to 110 grams. The rest of your calories from carbs, which would be about 35 to 50% of your total calories, which is around 200 to 300 grams. If you exercise regularly, you benefit from a higher carb intake, and a higher carb intake will slow down the decline in your metabolic rate that happens with age. It's important to realize that a lot of the chronic diseases that kill people in their 70s already start progressing in your 30s and 40s. The heart attack in your 60s started in your 30s. The Alzheimer's in your 80s started in your 40s, etc. Following a healthy lifestyle that includes exercise, eating a healthy diet, and not being overweight, yes, will reduce the risk of these chronic diseases. But you should also track certain biomarkers to see if you're heading in the wrong direction with your health early in life. For men, keep your waist circumference below 95 centimeters and waist to hip ratio below 0.95. For women, waist circumference below 75 centimeters and waist to hip ratio below 0.8. Keep your blood pressure below 120 to 80 to avoid hypertension, which accelerates heart disease and Alzheimer's. Keep your hemoglobin A1C, that reflects average blood sugar over the last few months, below 5.2%. Keep your triglycerides below 100 mg per deciliter at minimum and optimally around 50 mg per deciliter or lower. Keep your LDL cholesterol below 100 mg per deciliter at minimum and optimally below 70 mg per deciliter. Keep your HDL cholesterol between 40 to 60 mg per deciliter. Let's move on with supplements. Here are the supplements that someone in their 20s and 30s would already benefit from. Collagen peptides, because collagen content in the skin starts decreasing already in your 20s by 10% per decade. To slow down facial aging, you should take collagen. Dose 10 grams a day. Hyaluronic acid is another compound that declines in the skin starting in your 20s, and it maintains skin elasticity and hydration. Dose 100 milligrams a day. Astaxanthin is a supplement that can protect the skin against photoaging caused by the sun. Dose 6 to 12 milligrams a day. Creatine is a great supplement for increasing the effectiveness of your resistance training and sprinting, but it also increases bone density when combined with lifting weights. Dose 100 mg per kilogram per day. Glycine is a supplement that supports collagen synthesis and glutathione production, but it also has other anti-aging effects. Dose 5 to 10 grams a day. Now let's cover what I call auxiliary routines, the routines that support your general health and wellness. Sleep. You don't want to sleep restrict yourself, although you can handle it in your youth. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of sleep and up to 8.5 hours if you exercise hard. Sleeping less than 6 hours will increase your risk of Alzheimer's later in life. Maintaining social relationships is an underrated aspect of longevity that becomes increasingly more important as you get older, because with age, you spend significantly more time alone. The second person you spend the most time with, other than yourself, is your partner. Who you will marry or partner up with is one of the most important decisions of your life for that reason. So you shouldn't make that decision lightly. In your 30s and 40s, you spend the most time with your children, and after they move out, significantly less so. If you do have children, cherish that time and build a social reserve with them. Having children and grandchildren and spending time with them is good for your longevity. It's also important to talk about your financial reserve. A lot of old people suffer from financial problems because their retirement isn't enough to sustain themselves. This means saving a certain amount of money every month, ideally in an investment fund like S&P 500 or some other index fund. According to the compound effect, if you start early with savings and investing, you'll get exponential returns in a few decades. The best time to start saving was yesterday, but the next best time is today. Alright, let's wrap it up. Stay fit and avoid being overweight. Lift weights 3 times a week, but also balance it out with cardio and sprinting. Eat a mostly whole foods balanced diet. Get 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of protein, 30 to 40% of calories as fat, and 35 to 50% as carbs. Keep your blood sugar and blood lipids on the lower end to slow down the progression of heart disease. Sleep 7 to 8.5 hours and get moderate amounts of sunlight. Develop strong relationships with your partner, children, and friends, and maintain them for as long as possible. Start a savings account to benefit from the compound effect early in life. Take a few key supplements that 20-year-olds would already need, such as collagen, astaxanthin, creatine, and glycine. Like I said, I've been building and optimizing my own longevity routines for the last 10 years. If you want to learn more about the details of my decision making, then check out my full evidence-based longevity routine video next.